Okay.
So I've been excited to have this discussion with you because I think that, like as we just mentioned before we started the recording, you're a lot more in touch with sort of the emotion of the market right now, and I'm clearly, a little bit more of an economically driven realtor, and we both sort of serve the same purpose in the market, but I don't have that emotional intelligence, and I'm not really especially good at interacting with buyers in that way. So I really wanted to sort of evaluate what's going on in the market right now in this time of COVID with sort of from a qualitative perspective. So really getting your understanding of how consumer sentiment is acting right now. And then, I'll kind of inject sort of what I know about the nuts and bolts of it from the economic perspective. So to start off, just if you're able to give a quick introduction of yourself for those who don't know you, and then we can go from there.
For sure. Yeah. So I'm Steevie Soucie. I am a real estate agent in the Georgina area. I'm with the Volpe Alcorn real estate team at Keller Williams Realty Centers. And like you said, I definitely focus heavily on residential real estate. So cool. That's my jam for sure.
Cool. So overall, just because again, I would say the majority of even when I'm transacting homes, the majority of people that I am discussing those investment with or purchases with, we evaluate them as an investment, right? So I'm not exceptionally good at, and I disclose this to most of my clients right off the bat. I'm typically not the person you want coaching you through the emotional decision-making processes of a home. Mm-hmm. And I've been wondering since this whole thing started, and especially even more so as things started to ramp up and the market started to get hotter, what, if you were to generally characterize what the sentiment of the market is right now, like most of the buyers that you're working with, what are people feeling right now? Or does it vary kind of by segment? Like, are there any trends you could allude to?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely a completely different feeling between buyers and sellers right now. Obviously, we are in a 100% sellers market. So sellers are feeling great. It's a great time for them. We've been seeing like record-breaking prices. Things are selling extremely quick. It's a fantastic time to take advantage of as a seller. Buyers, on the other hand, it's discouraging right now. Like it's a really tough time to be a buyer. It's a tough market to be a buyer. We're seeing a lot of similarities to the market that we had in 2017, if you remember, which was also crazy. And a lot of things selling super quick, selling over asking, bidding wars. So for those people who just really don't want to compete, it's not the time for them because everything is going into competition right now. And it's just really tough. We're really low inventory. So not a lot of options for buyers either.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is also basically why the market is as hot as it is as well, because we're seeing such low inventory, right? So
yeah, it's definitely been pretty scarcity driven. So like when you compare it to 2017, nobody knew that foreign home ownership tax was going to happen, and I mean that was probably the final nail in the coffin. But realistically, it was probably really what marked the drop there. But right now, it's like we're looking at actual quantifiable things that you can say, okay, like the immigration stifled, which has been driving our economy, especially the housing prices. Our economy is not performing well at all, and that's quantifiable. There's like record unemployment. We can't get people to go back to work. So there's a whole bunch of real economic challenges that during 2017 you couldn't see happening. Does it feel like, and I don't actually, like, you don't even need to really apply judgment to it, but like, does it feel like people are just like ignoring that, or is it they don't believe it, or most people don't care? Like,
I think, you know what, I want to say it's almost a sense of that people are ignoring it. Like it's a very real thing. We're all aware of it. We're all aware that it's crazy that the market's even as crazy as it is during a global pandemic. But I think, to be honest, people tend to do what majority is doing. Yeah. And the market is hot right now. People are buying. It's crazy. And they hear that. And all of a sudden they think like, okay, so it must be hot for a reason. It's a good time to do something, Yeah. And also too, it is essentially a good time to sell because we are seeing great numbers for sellers. So At the end of the day, if they're selling, they're most likely going to have to buy. So It kind of one comes, they go hand in hand. So it is what it is. But I think a lot of it is just, the market's hot. So people think, okay, it must be time to do something.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Like you sort of get that it just becomes this cyclical or self-fulfilling consumer psychology, right? Where people are like,
Exactly.
oh
Yes.
yeah, if the market's hot right now, then it'll never not be hot. If it can sustain, the challenge of a global pandemic, then I think we'll be okay, right? So I might as well go out and buy a house because there's no way I'm going to lose money on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess realistically, I think in the past 100 years, there's only ever been one 5-year period, which is a typical mortgage term. There's only ever been one 5-year period where you would have lost money if you purchased. I think it was from like 89 to 94 in Canada.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are probably right that if they bought today, I think by the time they have to renew their mortgage, they're not going to be losing money. But I mean, I just I have a hard time getting around that whole thing. I think a lot of it, and I guess this is the next question, is a lot of it seems to be like this sort of suburbanization, right? Because like you can clearly see, and I'm sure you have from like the data that I've presented, Toronto's condo market and a lot of this density-based housing product is really like just suffering, right? And a lot of that is people from our generation, they're renting in the city right now, or they own a condo, and they're like leaving because they're like, I don't need to be close to work.
Yep.
Commuting has always worked. If I got to go to the office 2 or 3 days a week, I'll just do that, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing that sort of like actively? Like I know you do work with a lot of younger clients as well, right? Does that seem to be like a real kind of phenomenon right now?
No, totally. We're seeing, I feel like another reason why the market is so crazy right now is because we are seeing so many people exiting the city for one, to get away from the density, the population. I mean, anyone who is nervous of this virus and this situation, they want to get away from the population. And exactly like you said, there's no need. Like if they can work from home and they're going to be working from home long term, they don't necessarily need to be down in the city. So we're seeing a lot of people leaving the city and bringing their wealth this way too, right? Like if they're renting, maybe not necessarily, but people who are selling in the city and then moving this way, and they have all this money to spend, right? And the further north you go, the cheaper it gets. So they're coming and they're spending all their money down here, and that's also driving our prices up as well, right? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of people exiting the city for sure.
Right. Okay. Does that seem to be kind of across the board, or is it more like if you were to pick, is it like from an age perspective or demographic perspective, is it like, are you seeing it among young people, old people, whatever? Like a lot of cottage buying too, I think, right?
Lots, yeah. Not really. I think I would actually almost say the older generation is the ones leaving the city more so.
Right.
All over the board for sure, but I would actually say, yeah, older.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I noticed, like, I think in a couple conversations that we had and just before we recorded as well, like, do people seem to be feeling like defeated right now with like all the multiple offers and stuff? Like, is it kind of that, like, where the market starts to really feel exhausted? Like you saw in 2017, and you start like, I don't think we've seen the supply flood that we saw in 2017 yet. I don't know if we will, honestly, but are people starting to get fed up with the way the market's behaving on the buy side, at least?
Yeah, absolutely. On the buy side, for sure, it's very discouraging. I think there's a lot of people who are at the point where they just, if it's going into multiples, they just don't even want to compete. They don't want any part of it. It's extremely discouraging, I would say, especially for the first time home buyer kind of bracket.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, we're seeing a lot of just defeat and discouragement, and just kind of I think a lot of people are going to end up going into just like wait and see mode to see what happens, because it's just too much right now. And yeah, it's really hard. It's really, really hard.
For sure. When you talk to most people, like, when they're purchasing it, do they seem like they're actually thinking about whether or not like, is it still sort of investment focused? Like, okay, yeah, it's going to go up in value, or is that sort of just disappeared and it's kind of just like this like desperation to get the house?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people like aren't thinking of it necessarily as an investment point of view. Maybe again, still first time home buyers just trying to get their foot in the door, because that's the first step, right? But other than that, no. I mean, it's literally just trying to get your hands on something.
Yeah,
like there are a lot of people out there that have sold and they have now a quick closing date, because that's another thing. We're seeing a ton of very quick closing dates. And here they are now, forgetting that even though it's a great time to be a seller, it's a really difficult time to be a buyer. So now they've sold their property, and here they are trying to go and buy their next, and it's a struggle. So they have a closing date coming up, and at that point, they just need to get something, right? They need to they don't want to be homeless. So
right.
yeah. So we're
I mean, that makes sense too. Does it seem like is there any, I guess actually, if what you just described, like to me, that actually feels kind of healthy too, right? Like that, I don't know, that people are, because like, I think the GTA in Canada, like we've had this obsession with housing as if it's like an investment, and it's not. It's a savings vehicle. It's a good savings vehicle, don't get me wrong, but like it's really not, like sure, it earns a return, but I think at a certain point we need to stop thinking that way, because eventually that'll go away, right? So that actually like seems like a pretty healthy correction in consumer sentiment, that people are like, yeah, I'm going to buy this house for it to be a house. Like I'm not going to assume that because it went up 10% since COVID ended, that it's going to go up 10% by January and whatever. Because that sort of weird speculation is really what screwed us in 2017, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I actually think that's something that we don't really talk about. Like we're talking about how buyers are extremely discouraged right now, and they are the ones that keep losing out on multiple offers and can't get their hands on something. But there's also a different side to it of when that buyer in the moment is in that competitive situation, and they're in a bidding war, and at that point they're desperate to just get a house in time, so they end up doing whatever they can to secure this property. But you also don't hear about afterwards when it's all said and done, and now they're kind of sitting there going, I think we really overpaid for this house.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? Yeah.
That's the challenge, right? And like, I guess the way that works for me, like when I have those conversations with buyers, is like, look, like I can't make an emotional decision for you, and I can try the best that I can, but like the reality is, like if you were to pick a number, and you need to understand that tomorrow you could wake up, if you're going on this thing firm, you could wake up and be like, shit, I wish I didn't pay that extra 20 grand or whatever, right?
Totally.
So that's where you really have to think about that.
And to be honest, and that's another thing too, like when we get into these like markets like this where there is bidding wars and stuff, a lot of the time the offer that's going to get it is someone who's gone in firm.
Yeah.
And in reality, if they needed financing or whatever it is, these houses wouldn't be appraising at what people are paying for them.
No,
like
for sure.
There's a lot of stuff that are going way over their value.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and I think that like that's sort of when you start to get into that really frothy kind of like bubbly territory. Like 2017 was different because you could look at it and be like, okay, this is out of control, but there was nothing like there was no like look into the future that like you never knew that drop was going to happen, right? Like it could have, the market could have become imbalanced pretty quickly with a lot of supply, which is sort of what happened. But then the other piece is that like with what we're looking at right now, you almost have like the same ramping up phenomena, but then you have all of this shit on the other side that's like, when like deferrals are going to end, people got to pay, like tax season, we have like record delinquencies expected in February. Like to me, it's like, I don't know, I've felt that most buyers that I see in the market seem to be ignoring a lot of that stuff, or they just don't care, and the importance of getting a home is worth more to them than that risk, or it's worth the risk, let's say, and that's okay. On like the product side, because like I know I've been trying to do a lot of analysis on like where, like I was looking into cottage country a lot, and like we've seen huge price inflation in cottages, which to be honest, like that scares me a lot right now, because like 2 years ago a cottage would, not even like a year ago, a cottage would spend 2-3 months on market, right? Like you'd see that routinely like 60-90 days on market, and now you're at an average days on market for like a cottage of like 45 days. Like, so it's getting cut in half. And so you've taken a product that's like highly illiquid and made it liquid for a short period of time. This is literally how a bubble is created, and you inflated the price of it, right? So like to me, in 2 years, it's going to be the same thing. You go on Kijiji, you'll be able to get a jet ski, fitness equipment, a camper trailer for like pennies on the dollar. I fear that the same thing could happen for cottages. Are there any other trends that you're seeing in like from a product perspective, like that people are really attracted to? Like, is it proximity to the lake or whatever?
I would say just entry level homes. Anything that you would consider like a starter home for first time home buyers. Townhouses, extremely hot. Semis, in Georgina here, obviously, like we have all those kind of cottage properties. anything like that, that is just what would be considered an entry-level home, is just definitely the most overvalued, the most competitive, and they're the most attractive to people because they'll always, even though they're the most overvalued, they're still and always will be the most affordable.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. So yeah, I would definitely, I also would say, I mean, other than cottage properties, yeah, things close to the water, anything like that. A lot of people are focusing more now with being home and stuff on the luxury of being home, right?
Yeah.
So they want to live somewhere if that's where they're going to be, and they're going to be working from home for forever, who knows.
Yeah.
Then now people are really focusing on like their primary residence. So
yeah. Get the pool and like the staycation kind of property, right? Yeah, because we don't know when we're gonna be able to go on airplanes again, right? So
and also too, like even just from experiencing this last summer that we had, that not only was insanely hot and like killer weather, but the kids were home for the entire for so long, and people are probably just thinking like, if I have to go through another summer of that or what, like and I'm gonna be home all the time. I want a pool, I want a hot tub, I want I want everything to make it enjoyable. So
yeah, for sure, rightfully so. I think honestly that covers most of my questions. Is there anything that you wanted to ask me, or anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't get to?
What I would ask you is, from all because the thing is that there's so much information out there, and at this point, like no one really knows like what's true, what's not, what's from the information that you know is accurate about the economy, unemployment, everything. Like, what do you see for the future of the near future, I guess I should say, of like the housing market?
I think that there's going to be significant headwinds for the next probably year. I think it's going to depend on whether or not, like, I think the Canadian government or the Bank of Canada has already done they've been pretty exhaustive with how much money they can pump into the system to create residential credit. So that stimulates the economy enough and for a bit, but eventually, like, you can't that just creates a Ponzi scheme, right? It's like they lend you money and you go buy a house, and now that person has to go buy a house, so they lend them money. Eventually it just keeps going around. It's not an organic growth, right? And I think that since 2017, they seem to sort of start tailoring their growth policy and focusing on the price floor, so entry-level product like you described. Yeah. And that's why condos have just gone crazy, because credit was made the most sense for product, let's say below $800,000 or $600,000. But that's also why, when you look at the 2017 drop off, and a lot of that was in that luxury product. That's why it looked so significant, because expensive properties were coming down in value. But a lot of the stuff like towards the bottom in like Georgina as an example, like you never saw like a tear down version of one of those old cottages drop below, like, let's say 325. I don't think. Like, I think you had that one on Cooks Bay. That would have maybe been like the lowest. That's sort of
nothing. I would say nothing under 350. Yeah.
Right. So let's say that sets your price floor. And the price floor is basically your land value at that point. So that never really changed that much. And then now we've started growing off of that, right? So the challenge is like with condos and that house on Cooks Bay as an example, they were interchangeable for most young people. Like if you're a kid coming out of university and your parents just gave you $100,000 to go put a down payment on a house, you can say either, hey, I can go live in a condo in the city for $400,000 or $500,000, or I can go live in a house in Keswick for $400,000 or $500,000, whatever. Now condos have accelerated sort of out of that, so they were less interchangeable, and now you can kind of get to this point where you start upsetting the balance. I don't know if it's predictive, but the one thing that I can tell you with a reasonable degree of certainty is that condo values are very, very likely to come down. The challenge is what happens after that, right? So, and then that's when you start looking at the macro. Like, condo values should come down because there's 8,000 of them vacant in the city right now with nobody to rent them, and nobody's in line to rent them, and there's no circumstance in the next 365 days that creates a demand of 8,000 people to rent these things, unless the Canadian government decides that they're just going to start renting them to give to homeless people or something, which could happen. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
But so, or there's like a vaccine, but even then it's still going to take too long for this whole thing to cycle out. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with basically, we've got, how long is it going to take for immigration to pick up? How long is it going to take us to get back to regular employment? Right?
Yeah.
How long is it going to take for students to start coming back? And then, I mean, after you've got all that, let's say that's a five-year process. Then the question is the urban environment ever going to look the same? Like, are people ever going to be working in office buildings in downtown Toronto again? Are young people from our generation, other than wanting to live in a city for the sex appeal of it, is there ever going to be an actual advantage to them living in the city of Toronto again? Like, they can't walk. There's no point to walk to work. You can't go to nightclubs. You can't go to restaurants, bars, whatever. So then, you know, I guess I'm answering your question with a question, but to me, I don't see the answers to any of those variables that I just proposed to you being positive answers. So I think that we could see some suffering. It's very difficult to quantify how much, but I don't know how much they can prop up demand anymore. Like, yeah, so that's sort of, I'm quite fearful for the market, honestly. I really am. It's like, it's gotten to the point where like I sort of have a moral hazard even trying to sell people property right now. Sorry, my internet connection's cutting in and out.
I agree. And it's just so much uncertainty too, right? Which is also, you know, that creates a lot of fear in itself. The unknown is always like, it's scary. But what do you think? Because I know what, like, I think about this, but what do you think about like commercial real estate moving forward? Like specifically like office buildings and places that generally are filled with employees and stuff that no longer are going to need as much use. And like, what do you think is going to happen with that, like commercial real estate?
It's really like, that's a very interesting question, and it's a really good question. I think that when you look at like an office building, like a lot of these are owned by like massive institutions, like pension funds, right? So like if they just stop making money, like you think about, like you go right down to the financial court and you stand in the middle of Yonge Street and you look around, every single one of those buildings is owned by a pension fund or some other massive company. Those are things that like, it would literally affect massive amounts of Canadians for them to lose money at scale, right? So in some way, shape, or form, that has to be replaced. Like, and it's something that they will prioritize at a policy level, the government level.
Yeah.
How do they do that? I don't know. The only thing that they've alluded to so far is that the Canadian government literally said that they're willing to buy distressed commercial assets off of anyone, but like it sounded like sort of institutions, to convert them to affordable housing. So basically, could you take, you know, a 145 King West or some sort of other like Bentall Kennedy pension fund asset, strip it of all of its office tenants, move them all to another building, so you're recreating this density so that there's not empty office or half full office towers, and then fill that with affordable housing. Well, I mean, I'm not really a NIMBY about affordable housing. I actually really think affordable housing adds to the vitality of a city, but I suspect that a lot of the people working in the financial district in investment banking who are going to, you know, if you were to use this example, now live next door to an affordable housing building, might have a different perspective of it than I do. So that's like one example, and that would be the biggest example. Those are like your billion-dollar assets. When you think about smaller stuff, so like a mixed use, you know, Main Street, Newmarket as an example. I honestly think that those main streets are, I'm surprised that they're thriving as well as they have so far. I hope that we see that continue, but I think that a lot of those areas are going to get decimated, and basically we can, like, they're going to start from scratch. And I hope, like, I have my fingers crossed so much for like the hyper local business communities, because like the challenge is, like, you know, during the lockdown, you couldn't go to a local restaurant. Like, they didn't have the resources to be able to follow all the guidelines outlining COVID or in the lockdown. And so now you're going to like McDonald's or like whatever, right? And now these companies, McDonald's was like thriving, Tim Hortons, they were all just crushing it during a lockdown. All these small businesses just get absolutely decimated, right? And Walmart, like, you know, so I think that you start like at a super high level, you see this migration from like this small local small business economy that like a place like Georgina does really well and has a beautiful little local business community, and this whole thing just kind of fucks that all up, right? and that's, I don't know, that's something, that's a problem that we need to solve together in the future. Like we got to really work together to help
Yeah,
other small businesses, local businesses succeed.
for sure. And it's so funny because it's like people are so aware that like local businesses need the help and they are the ones that have really suffered through this
Yeah.
and all that. And don't get me wrong, we definitely have a lot of local business supporters, but it's funny how people still just, there's just like not enough, you know what I mean? Like people still will go to McDonald's over like the local cafe
Yeah.
or, you know, whatever. It's just like, it's just what people do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. And they just don't even realize like, and it's funny because like people probably don't even realize how much big companies like that thrive during this.
Right.
Like everyone just thinks, oh, everything's being hurt and all businesses are being hurt,
Right.
but that's not necessarily the case.
No, McDonald's posted record quarters during COVID. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I know it's tough. I mean, it's not like we have a responsibility to screw McDonald's. Like a lot of those are local franchise owners and like local employees and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it's gonna, I think that we're at risk of really sacrificing the vitality of a community. Like you go to, you know, Georgina is really just starting to develop this like intimate sense of walkability, right? You go to like downtown Sutton, you got those nice new townhouses there now, and it's by the water and whatever. And there's like, now there's a like local little coffee shop. And like, I mean, we're just getting started towards what, you know, Main Street Newmarket or Unionville or whatever is. And I think we've torn that down and we're gonna have to start from scratch, which is sad to me. It's hard. It's not an easy process to go through. That's like a very, on the bright side, when you look at it in a big picture, like a place like Toronto, a lot of these businesses are just going to get absolutely destroyed, which sucks. And it's really sad to see, but then you're going to have massive rolling vacancies throughout Toronto. So, you know, maybe you're an innovator in the food space or the retail space, right? And you have this model, but your model only works when you can pay $1,600 a month rent for this unit on Queen West or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, in January, you couldn't, the chances of you ever finding a place or thinking you could ever find a place for that were zero. So you were like, I'm just going to throw this idea out because it'll never work given the current economy. Now the economy, like the barrier to entry has been reduced. Yeah. So ultimately what I think as things get back to normal and we start figuring out what that new normal looks like, I think you could start seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of business models that are cool and could really, you know, could thrive in a lower cost economy could arise. And that's, so there's, I guess I do have some excitement about the how things will take shape moving forward.
For sure. Yeah. Like giving, you know, people seeing opportunity in it and giving other people an opportunity to do something that they definitely couldn't before. So,
yeah, I think like you see it in our business too, right? Like I think like certain people, you know, like I'm seeing like a lot of people from our generation actually really thriving as agents in this economy because like the whole, like everything just became digital instantly, right? And now, so we all had an advantage because a lot of us were already working with these tools and whatever, and we were using social to reach clientele and advertise properties. So that's kind of cool. And like I've noticed you guys are obviously doing that really well right now as well. Have you seen kind of like trends like that arise?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I have always, and I'm getting better and better at it, like with like social media and all that. But I've always said, from a business perspective, that like social media is such a huge thing because one, exactly, we use it to connect to clients and stuff, but two, it's free advertising. Like it's so easy to make a name for yourself on social media. And my whole thought was throughout that whole lockdown and all that, all people were doing were sitting at home on their phones and their computers. And you know what, there was just so much more exposure. And and I think people, I've definitely noticed people getting like a lot more creative with social media and media marketing in general and all that. And and I think it's funny, I had this conversation the other day with a colleague of mine and we were just talking about, because real estate's a struggle. Like it's not an easy career. It's a really tough industry and it's very competitive. Yeah. And we were just saying how, you know, when you're kind of a newer agent, whether you're younger or you're just newer to the business, there's such a struggle with just trying to get clients and trying to, you know, build your business and whatever. But then you have the older generation of realtors who have been in the business for years and years and years. And at this point, they're so successful that they're literally working on just like a referral basis and that's great. but they're struggling to keep up with the young people when it comes to the social media and marketing themselves and all that. So,
well, the other, I've actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because like I'm sort of in a unique position where I'm taking like what you just described. My parents who know absolutely nothing about technology, but they have that, that client for life database. And it's like, okay, well, like it took me like 4 years just to explain to my mom the value in adding all of her past clients on Facebook, right? Like, and she's like, oh, like I send them emails and mail and whatever. I'm like, yeah, do you know you can like interact with them for free here using a computer? Like,
and keep up to date with like important things in your life and like,
So, but it's cool to see, because like I think that now all of a sudden I think that you're starting to see this appreciation for that. And I've noticed even clients now who, like, one of the first things, if you're in a listing presentation, one of the first things they're asking you is like, how are you marketing my property online? Like, how do you make sure that everybody can do, or basically see everything they need to know about my property before they come here because of COVID, or if a new lockdown happens, which it's honestly looking like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so.
No, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. It is becoming more and more of a thing. And we get all our, like 90% of the time of your buyer is coming from online, right? Like that's where they're seeing your property first, even if they're working with a realtor or whatever, like 9 times out of 10, they've seen your listing on realtor.ca. They've asked their realtor about it, whatever, but it is such an important thing. And like it's, like I said, it's free advertising. Like, why would you not use it to just promote yourself, right? So, and actually, sorry, with that being said too, I notice more and more with like my generation and then younger than myself, a lot of people, we've lost that comfortability of just like normal human interaction. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling you. So like I can advertise all I want through whatever email, this and that, and say, oh, call me. I'm not going to get those phone calls from a certain age group. So they feel more comfortable being able to shoot me a direct message or whatever and then communicate that way, right? So
for sure. No, it's, you got to be speaking the same language as people, right? Like it's like that's why like we always post all our listings on Instagram and stuff, like, and it's even on our sign riders so that like somebody can drive by, like, rather, people have like the text thing on the top, like text whatever to. I'm like, no, I mean, there was probably 5-10 years ago people were doing that, but now it's like, okay, go on Insta, because that's and maybe now it's probably like TikTok or whatever, but who knows.
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
They go on Insta and then they can interact with the listing right on Instagram, and then they can flip us a message, and then you've got them captive there. Like, so yeah, I mean, I don't know, the whole thing's evolving, and I think that this has really just catalyzed it, honestly.
Yeah.
On the topic of social, and I'll be mindful of your time unless there's anything else you want to add here, but if people want to reach out to you and talk about real estate or whatever, pick your brain on some of the stuff that we discussed, where do you prefer that they reach out to you? And I'll add this to the show notes, so if you just want to just.
Instagram, honestly, I'm Instagram or Facebook. Like I'm on top of both of them all the time. So or even text message, like whatever. I'm either way.
Okay, cool. All right, and you're all good. Did you want me to add anything? Or?
No, I think that's everything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Honestly, it was nice finally to, like, I've always noticed just from your videos and the content that you post online that you obviously seem pretty emotionally in touch with the market.
Yeah.
And I have these conversations a lot with my mom, because she's similar. Like, she is very, very much an emotionally driven agent. I'm just not. Like, I've tried as much as I can. It's just not my character.
Yeah.
But she's obviously works with a much, like, older clientele, I would say. And so it's not really nice to get your perspective on what the consumer sentiment is like in the market. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. It's cool. I feel like, to be honest, even since starting to post like videos and kind of do all that, not only have I exposed myself more to like clients, but even like other realtors, the amount of like opportunities and even like realtors reaching out to me to ask me questions and stuff. It's been really cool. So
yeah, no, I get the same thing a lot, and
Thanks.
it's interesting to see, like, on Instagram especially, like this community of agents evolving. Like, I think a lot of people like a lot of you get like a lot of those like 80s and 90s agents where like they get this really combative like idea that like we're all like fighting but like we're all on the same team here, and the buyer and seller are on the same team too. Like, everybody wants to just see a deal done at the end of the day, right?
100%. It's so true. Like, it's got to be a win-win for everybody, and that's at the same. if the agents are battling against each other, they're trying to get deals done. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I'll let you get back to your busy day. Go sell some homes. Have a great weekend, and thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. That's awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. See you later, dude.